You know, I'm always excited to interview people that I believe are making a huge difference. Have you ever thought you could make a difference with carrots? I want you to watch this video, and then we're going to talk to Rebecca Sherbino, who's got an amazing story to tell about the raw carrot soup enterprise. Watch this with me.
We believe that a hand up is way more awesome than a handout. For 5 years, we sat in the pews at church and watched a teenage girl named Amanda grow up. Because of her disability, she was marginalized, living in poverty, and dependent on ongoing handouts. But we saw her potential. We saw someone who deserved the dignity of work. Amanda could thrive if given the right opportunity.
Do you know that there are almost 1 million people in Ontario alone like Amanda, living with a disability or mental illness? Many who want to and can work. That's why we decided to get out of the pew and do something. Over a cup of coffee, God ignited a passion in our hearts to give people the dignity of work in a simple but profound way, cooking gourmet soup. In 2014, the Raw Carrot was born. I'm Rebecca.
And I'm Colleen.
And we are the co-founders of the Raw Carrot Soup Enterprise.
Our model is simple. We use existing church kitchens, hire people on social assistance, and create tasty gourmet soup. In our first year, we hoped to sell $5,000 worth of soup. We sold $25,000 and quickly realized God had a bigger plan than we imagined. By 2016, other organizations had caught the vision and wanted to replicate. We now have 18 people employed at 3 sites. By growing together, we realized we would be stronger.
We have a big dream, a vision to see people employed and flourishing across Canada. We've employed 18 of the 1 million. We need you to help us bring the raw carrot to people in communities across Canada, to be change makers and innovators together. Can one bowl of soup help change the world?
You decide.
Well, welcome, Rebecca Sherbino. Great last name, by the way. Becky, I'm so glad you're here. This conversation is long overdue. Talk to me about the raw carrot soup enterprise. How did it start? I've got a picture of it, but bring us up to date with where you're at right now.
Thanks, Michael. So nice to join you. The Raw Carrot Soup Enterprise really was a passion project that God had laid on our hearts, mine and Colleen's. And as the video says, it took a bit of prodding to get us out of the pew and to do something. But we just kept having conversations with people in our church who had so much potential. And we just knew that they could thrive if they had the right opportunity. And so what better way than to cook something healthy and tasty and nice and warm than soup? And so that's where we began. We started with just 4 people that we knew in our church congregation, and that has now grown to 4 sites and almost 30 permanent part-time staff that are working in church locations in southwestern Ontario.
I mean, I'm just excited when I hear the story because you're making an impact in people who a lot of times are just ignored by society. Isn't that right?
It's very true. There's so many people who are really marginalized, and when you can't find a job because of your disability or mental illness, you're really out in the margins. And it's, you know, for people who want to have a job and want to give themselves a hand up in life, it seems like a very frustrating thing. You know, they're constantly having to ask, they're constantly having to rely on the food bank or churches or donations from people, when really what they want is to provide for themselves and their families. And so that's the gap that we wanted to address, this piece for people who really had potential to do more than just to receive a handout.
Well, you know me, I love stories. And as you think back over these last 4 or 5 years, what's one story that stands out to you, like one of God's redemptive stories? Is there one that just kind of makes you smile especially?
Yeah, probably the staff member that's sort of close to my heart in some ways is somebody that we employ that has a mental illness. And this is a lovely fellow who just could not keep a job because his mental illness is so severe that he's in and out of a mental facility a number of times during the year. And often that's for sort of 2 to 3 times at 2 to 3 weeks at a time. And so he is such a lovely fellow, but couldn't keep a regular job in a traditional work environment. And so he found a job here at the Raw Carrot, and he is just thriving through the dignity of work, having a place where he can come where he knows that he will be secure in his job here. When he needs to be off for his mental illness, he's able to do that. We have a volunteer who stands and peels and chops veggies while he's off, but it gives him the opportunity to be away without fear that he will lose his job. And so he's then able to come back here and continue working at the church as soon as he's well enough to do so.
Okay, so my mind now is spinning. I'm a pastor, but I also think, oh, I'd love to do something like this. What would be involved? Because I know that it's a lot of work to do, but it is so rewarding. So when you hear people say, tell me more, what would you tell them? What would you tell me today?
Yeah, this ministry is not for the faint of heart, for sure. It's an outreach that's very different. We've got income coming in. We've got about $50,000 worth of sales at each location per year. So there's a lot going on, but I really do think that churches who have a big heart for mission and outreach, this can be a great fit, because I think that there is a feeling that people are providing a Band-Aid solution, right? We have community meals and we have food cards and things like that are happening at churches all over. And those types of crisis interventions are very necessary. But this is the next step. This is for a church that really wants to engage and take on a ministry where they're providing a hand up for the long term. At our church here at Paris Presbyterian, we have 10 staff now that have permanent part-time jobs, and they are thriving in that job, and they're earning an income for themselves. So they don't need to ask the church for money year after year. So that is really the ideal type of partner, is somebody a church who sees the value in providing that a hand up for people in need.
I like that it's a hand up. So as we're doing this interview, the way to contact you is being run across our screen right now. And what is one thing in particular that you need right now that we can share with our viewers?
Mike, probably what I'd say is exactly what you hit on. We'd love to start more of these locations in Ontario and across Canada. We see that there's a huge need for people to have this hand up, the social pieces and the income to help them survive. And so what we're looking for really is partner churches. Partner churches are organizations who share this vision and who share the mission. And so really, we'd love to be in touch with anyone that has that same vision to see if there's potential to start something together.
That is amazing. Becky, I want to thank you for sharing with us today the Raw Soup Carrot Enterprise. And contact Becky if God is nudging your heart to do something that makes a difference.